will be released this afternoon, and it's expected to focus on gender equality, innovation, and funding for local media. But what does that mean for the average Canadian? Well, joining me is personal finance expert Alex Kenjeev. Thank you so much for being here, Alex.
Thank you, Ben. Good to see you.
We know that this federal budget is expected to have incentives for new dads to take parental leave. What does that mean?
This is a kind of way to fix some of the problems or shortcomings with the old parental leave system. So if you're thinking of having a kid, right? Last year, you could take 18 months instead of 12, but the devil was in the details. You wouldn't get as much of your salary as maybe you were counting on, and it turned out that not as many women were going into the workforce in response to those programs. This addresses those problems, says fathers could take 5 weeks as well at the same time.
Well, Justin Trudeau said that he wants to encourage more women to enter the workforce as a way of boosting the economy. So we've got a board here. According to Statistics Canada, 82% of women in Canada were either working or looking for work, which sounds like a good number, but when you compare it to 91% of men, it is definitely lower. If we were able to raise that number of 82 to get closer to the 91% that men are, what would that do to the economy?
It would be massive. In fact, I think the Royal Bank said that if we could just narrow that gap, by a realistic amount, we could get a permanent GDP boost of about 4%. That's like getting an entire year's worth of economic activity for free.
Well, I mean, we need to be finding those
Sure.
those innovations any way we can. Ottawa, after almost a year of very controversial consultations about whether or not to tax passive investment of corporations.
Yep.
What are we going to see in this budget on that front?
This is like the big reveal. All these tax nerds like me have been waiting patiently to see what's going to happen with the small business rate, and today we're going to find out. I think it's not going to be nearly as dramatic as was expected. In fact, a lot of people think some of the test balloons or ideas being floated earlier were really posturing, and the real plan is going to come today. Not going to be massive as we think.
It's not going to be as dramatic. It's not going to affect people or certain groups the way they thought it could. The sky's not necessarily falling, is what you're going to say.
I certainly don't think so.
All right. A lot of people are wondering whether this budget is going to have anything in it that reacts directly to the Donald Trump tax cuts that we saw down south. The notion of Canada remaining competitive vis-a-vis our American counterparts. Is this budget going to say anything on that front?
I think they're going to say it without saying it. So they're going to be thinking about how do we respond to this in a way that doesn't erode our tax base. And probably what they want to do is wait. They're not going to want to dramatically change our tax code on a whim, because who knows how things are going to shake out, how are people going to change their planning. I think you're going to see things like contingency funds, rainy day funds, as they set aside money for unknown contingencies.
But can I play devil's advocate? Where's
Sure.
that money going to come from? I mean, the knock is we're already running deficits.
Right.
So isn't that just imaginary money?
It is, but that's the beautiful thing. You got to think of it as, think a couple of years later when they didn't spend it all. Then it works the other way. Where did this free money come from? We set it aside, right? Because you're not really spending it necessarily.
So
it lets you send the signal like you're going to spend it without necessarily actually spending it.
So there's going to be issues of signaling, but not any real massive tax cuts on any one front or another in order to sort of position us positively versus the Americans.
Well, I wouldn't hold my breath for today.
Yeah.
I don't think that means they're not going to respond. I just think they're going to wait it out a little bit longer.
Okay. Well, on a completely different front, there's been a lot of talk on how can the government help local media? And is this budget going to do anything to throw a lifeline to a lot of these local media outlets, specifically newspapers, that might really need some help?
I think lifeline is probably the right word, because it's not going to be much more than that. What this government is looking at is a total change of all the technology on the ground, while also having these ideals about Canadian content and media protection from, the 80s and 70s. And so I think right now they're thinking, how do we stop the ship from sinking for now while we figure out the bigger play? I think we're going to see much bigger moves in that area of policy next couple of years, kind of pre-election season.
Well, there's going to be a lot to chew on later, so thanks for priming us this morning. Appreciate it, Alex.
Thank you, Ben.